Welcome back to a Prep Baseball Recruiting Essentials episode. I am Shooter Hunt, your host, sitting next to the legendary college baseball, D1Baseball.com's own Aaron Fitt, because we're going to be talking today about some future rankings, the direction of college baseball rosters. We're going to go all over the place, a fireside chat, if you will. Aaron, welcome to the show.
I love a good fireside chat. 'Tis the season, right?
Exactly. We're here at the ABCA Convention in DC. But you and I have been going back and forth, and yearly we work together as partners with D1 Baseball, putting the top newcomers lists out into the world. But what we've done for so long is we watch the fall season, we take our notes from high school, put the list together, get some stuff from what you saw throughout the fall, and then we put it out right usually last week in January when we can all get stuff together and put that list together. I feel like we're going to start changing that a little bit.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating time for college athletics for so many reasons. But I mean, when we started talking about it this year, we're like, does it make sense to go as in-depth on the top 25 classes and all of the depth pieces that all these schools have brought in when the portal has changed the way everyone constructs their roster so dramatically, right? And so it doesn't mean that your high school recruiting isn't important, although some programs are treating it like it's not important. I mean, you hear about programs where they've just kind of cut loose a lot of high-end freshmen because they're just going all in on the portal. I mean, Georgia comes to mind as a program that has really shifted in that direction, away from the freshmen. But our emphasis, I think we've decided, is going to be more on the high-end, instant impact guys, because everyone else, you don't know if they're going to be there after a year.
Yep.
And so it's the studs, right? It's the guys who are ready to come in right away and be foundational pieces from the jump.
I think foundational pieces is the perfect way to put it, and that's how I always looked at it. We were kind of joking back and forth. I sent you over this email, but if you think back to the NBA Jam, the NBA Hang Time version of, like, you have two guys who are playing, you got a reserve or two, how key are those guys? And you talked about some programs doing that, and like Georgia, like new coaching staff, you got to come in and win right away. That's an easier way to win immediately, getting old fast. But a lot of the champions recently, the foundational pieces have come up through. I think of LSU, Paul Skeens, a generational talent, comes in, but Dylan Cruz was there as a freshman. Trey Morgan's there as a freshman. Gavin Guidry's coming in as a freshman. Cade Beloso was there throughout. Those foundational pieces were part of the program. Right. Tennessee, you look at last year, they got some transfers. They also lost a mega transfer, but they had a lot of guys internally that they have developed. So it still is of vital importance to get those freshmen in your system and play.
It sure is, and it's interesting that a lot of those examples that you cited, I mean, those guys like Dylan Cruz's of the world, they showed up before the portal. And so, like, some of those, before the portal, as it is right now, and so a lot of the teams from the last few years have kind of relied still more on that model. And I'm curious as we move forward to see which model becomes more prominent. I mean, I still believe that you need to have some continuity in your program. Mm-hmm. You need to have even the developmental guys, not just the studs. I still think there's room for those guys to kind of wait their turn and become cornerstone pieces, maybe their second, third year, even fourth year in the program. We still do see that. Not everybody's going to be an instant star, but it's just a matter of who's going to have the patience to hang around and develop in a program when they've got older guys in front of them.
Culture is still ultra important.
Yeah.
And I think you've seen it all over. I think all of the transfer portal stuff may also leave open, I don't want to say mid-major, we always call it the power majors. An opening for a power major who has built great culture, kept kids. It was, this guy's going to transfer. Well, maybe he likes where he's at. Maybe he's got a girlfriend. Maybe he likes the town. Maybe the coach does a good job with him in the developmental phase. There are so many other aspects. I think of Coastal. Coastal does such a great job. Caden Bodine this year, who came in as a freshman. Fluky is going to have a huge year. We can talk about that off camera.
I'm on that.
But like, those are guys who came into a mid-major. They've done a great job developing a culture. And there's programs all over. I think of the Big West guys. But with regards to these rankings moving forward, having that frontline guy, I always think, like, if you have a guy who's going to start on the weekend at some point and really be a focal point, especially in the SEC, ACC, that's important to have in a recruiting class. You have that guy frontline, potential Will Schmidt type where, hey, this guy passed up millions of dollars, is the number one guy to get to campus. That's important. Tyler Bell, a shortstop switch hitter going to Kentucky, That's foundational. That's a type of top of the order guy who's playing an impact position. If you have one of those guys in this classes, huge. Owen Payno, Ole Miss, those are big guys.
James Nunnally at Virginia comes to mind. That guy is gonna be a monster.
You like Nunnally too?
Oh man,
he's one of my faves.
It's just an automatic. That bat's gonna hit. It's just gonna play. And if you talk to the Virginia coaching staff about that kid and compare him to some of the guys they've had for 20 years, it's high praise. They're very excited.
And I'm sure they're sweating out. We got some pro scouts around us right now. The Brewers are trying to steal them away in the draft. That would have been a nice pick there. But it's so important, and even more so, I think in the past, the depth has been the rank, right? Top 25 rankings. These guys got 25 guys in the class. Well, there's only 9 spots in the field. There's only 3 starters on the weekend. There's only so many spots. There's only one ball. People forget that. There's only one ball. But like having those top 2 guys, and then, hey, we got some good pieces that we can work with. Hey, this arm, I think of what Tony and the Tennessee guys have done, what Wake has done with their pitching. How do we get this guy better to where he's starting the next year?
I love the arms that Wake Forest has brought in. I mean, once again, you talk about just reloading, and again, it's the balance, because you mentioned Tennessee lost that mega transfer last year. Chase Burns lived up to every ounce of the billing at Wake Forest. That worked out incredibly well, but now he's gone. And they've got the blend. I mean, the Chris Lavonis, of course, comes to mind but there's other guys like Duncan Marston, who was kind of he was on the radar in high school. Certainly he was a good prospect, a good recruit. Yep. He's kind of taken the leap in the fall, and he could be their Saturday starter, or maybe their Friday starter when it's all said and done. It's that kind of arm. And so sometimes you don't know until guys get to campus how ready they are.
It's so key, and you talk about a kid like Duncan Marston, who we love, but one of the keys for him in college baseball, right? The window is really short. It's not, oh man, this guy won the pro ball and 4 years later was a star. Like, hey, we had him from 18 to 21. He needed to be good here.
Yep.
Right? You're not helping Jay Johnson at 25 when you're in AA and look really good. So having those guys in a short window, Duncan Marston, and we can switch over to talking about this. California kid, mega program, Harvard Westlake, just churns out. It's just a factory of prospects. That guy's ready to go right away. Kids in the Trinity League in Southern California are ready to go right away. Those guys are set. And what are we seeing happening right now? Schools are going into California and bringing guys east. What do you think? Do you think that's going to be something we're seeing a ton of the rest of the way?
I absolutely do. Yeah, it's a great point because they are so polished. We know there's a ton of talent in California. I mean, the population of the state, the weather, the baseball history. Obviously, that's always been the case, but that's the difference now, is that more than ever, you can't wait 2 or 3 years in a lot of cases for a guy to develop. You need somebody who's ready to go from day one, and that's where those California kids, some of the Georgia kids, the Florida kids, especially, those hotbed places are going to be even more pivotal. And we have seen, really an influx of talent from California to the SEC in particular over the past 5 years. You and I have talked about that a lot. And I think that's only going to continue. Although it'll be interesting now with conference realignment, are the USCs and the UCLAs of the world able to keep more of those guys home? I mean, they always still get their guys, don't get me wrong. I mean, UCLA's been a recruiting machine for a long time. But there's also definitely talent drain that we've seen.
I've seen it's been curious on my side of things, where I'm seeing like the recruiting process of UCLA, like the talent's so good in Southern California and California in general as a whole, where like we haven't had to go, now all of a sudden, do we want to go mix it and bring in one guy from the Midwest potentially? Arizona's done a great job. I've joked with the guys in California, like, what is it about the state line where it's okay for a Midwest kid to go to Arizona or ASU or Grand Canyon, one of those schools, but all of a sudden California, there's a blockage here.
It's pretty crazy. You're right. It really is.
It's nuts, but maybe now we start seeing UCLA, hey, we got one kid in the Northeast that loves the brand, wants to come to California. We're going to identify a few and really narrow in. Still protect state lines, still get our guys. USC, obviously a national brand, international brand.
Sure.
Private school going up. They've had some guys from the Northeast come in, Southeast, they're kind of going all over. Stanford obviously has done it forever.
And Stanford this year, you were telling me, some of the work they've done on the East Coast has stood out to you.
I mean, Matt Scott in particular, and like obviously the education sells itself. New England kid from up in your neck of the woods.
That's right,
but like huge arm, brought him in, developed. Like it's maybe Matt Scott really sparks the pitching factory that is Stanford, the former KP days of Kyle Peters.
I'm buying Stanford this year, and one of the reasons is, again, going back to what we were talking about before, building that young talent, and in their case, they had to wait a year for some of those young arms to develop.
Yep.
But we loved their class last year. and now it's the Joey Volchkos of the world, and some of these guys are ready to take that next step and be, that's going to really determine their chances this season, is how ready those guys are.
Yes.
I think they are. I think you're going to see that development.
It's always interesting when we have our calls. This is just peering behind the curtain a little bit, the discussions, because you guys are seeing the guys for the first time. We've had the 4 years, hey, this guy's got a chance, right? Joey Volchko in particular, like, it is mega stuff. He has unteachableness through the roof.
Yeah. Is
it going to click? And there's times where, like, as a freshman, you're looking at it like, hey, I don't know if he's going to be able to do this because it's going to have to click, right? You step on the field of college baseball, you better be throwing strikes, you better be putting the ball in play. Yeah. Winning matters, not just the development.
And one of those big, long-levered guys that it's not always that easy to get in sync, but you see him the right day. I mean, I saw him on the Cape this summer, and you could see it starting to come. I mean, it's enormous arm, and it's just a matter of maybe just finding that field of spin a little bit more and just throwing strikes. That's just being in the zone.
And the summer is so important. I love following summer baseball. I used to say to freshmen when they come on camp, freshman year stinks.
Yeah.
You're tamping mounds, you're going back home, you've only had 10 at-bats. Hey, how's things going at school? Well, you put a smile on it, it's going great. I get to tamp the mounds every day, and I carry the ball back.
Tamping mounds in Charlottesville as a freshman?
Oh yeah, multiple mounds all over the place. So that's something as a freshman, but you go off into summer ball. I always think back, Charlie Condon had like 250 at-bats. Redshirted his freshman year, got a ton of work in. You get to see guys like Joey Volchko goes out, gets some kind of stress-free innings where you gain that confidence. Well, I get in the zone, but I do think Stanford's got a huge chance. But those guys are also very fascinating after their freshman year. And there are guys, even now, where like he's not on the shotgun level, Kendall's not looking at him yet, Aaron Fitt's not there, the great Dr. Seifert's not looking at him. But that freshman went out, and he's ready for his sophomore year. Because, as Bobby Knight used to say, the best thing about freshmen is what? They become sophomores.
That's right, exactly.
So I'm excited to see a lot of those guys. Any in particular that you're eyeing, like this guy could make a jump this year? I know you're a big ACC guy.
Yeah, obviously I see a lot of ACC in the fall especially, and there are some interesting ones really, I mean, all over the place. I just think, I look at North Carolina, comes to mind. Folger Boas, can he come back and stay healthy?
He's one I love.
I mean, really, yeah, it's a great body. It's a firm fastball that plays. It's I think an elite slider, and coming off injury last year. If he's healthy, and Jason DeCaro as a sophomore now, can take that next step. And boy, was he good as a true freshman. As a 17-year-old for most of the season, as an early enrollee. Loved that 1-2 punch there from North Carolina at the top of the rotation. So that's the kind of thing I'm looking for, is especially on the mound, right? Because you see, I think, a lot of growth from year 1 to year 2 for some of those pitchers, and building up the strength so they don't hit the freshman wall that so many pitchers hit late in the year.
And you bring up DeCaro, who I love Jason DeCaro in high school. In the reclass, I thought more teams would go and try to pay him out. But Folger Boas, who was a big-time athlete throughout high school, a winner, 1-2 punch there. Tobacco Road, though, will have a nice AJ Gracia moment, who I think has a chance to be a superstar as well. Love
AJ Gracia, who, I mean, he's almost already a superstar. He was so good as a freshman, maybe just a level below that, but it's coming fast. I mean, because it's a left-handed hitter with incredible plate discipline, with real power. And he might play some first base this year as well as right field. I think he plays some center field in fall ball. Like, he can move around. He's more athletic than you think, but he is an absolute stud. Kyle Johnson is another sophomore, second-year player for Duke.
Is he still two-way?
Still two-way, okay. And he might be their regular starting center fielder.
Oh wow!
And depending
Duke
on how
loves two ways.
Yeah, they're trying to figure out how best to utilize him on the mound and kind of balance those responsibilities. But I mean, he's got the best stuff on their staff. He saw it this fall. He's going to take a big jump. He was my pick last year that we talked about as my pick for National Freshman of the Year. I mean, maybe a little early on that, but he's the real deal.
Bugs Bunny changeup will be there all spring. Now we bring up the two-way action. We're at the ABCA. There was a rules meeting last night. I don't know if you were there. More so, I wanted to ask you about the roster construction, where we're headed, because the hot thing in our world, right? Recruiting high school kids. It's going down to 34 man. The coaches have no idea. All the guys I've spoken to are like, we don't know what's coming. How do you think a 34 man roster will affect the sport as a whole?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it? And everyone has. Here's
literally.
The thing. Yeah, for sure. Here's the thing, though. I guess people forget is, before all this COVID stuff and the roster limits got expanded, everyone was used to playing with a 35 man roster. It's just, the key thing is how many are you allowed to have in the fall? And that was a big topic of conversation last night. And it sounds like, the idea is here, we're going to settle on, try to push for 38 that you can have at the start of the fall, and then you've got to cut it down to 34 by December 1st. And so the one thing that I think coaches don't want to go back to, a lot of coaches, most coaches don't want to go back to, is the Wild West days of those mid-year transfers in the winter break, like we had 15, 20 years ago, where you had a lot of poaching in the wintertime, and it just became a mess. And that's one thing that I think people are concerned about. If we're going to go to a strict 34-man roster, but you still have 45 guys in the fall, we're going to have a lot of players who need homes. I suppose if there's only 4 players who get cut at the break, maybe those guys just go to JUCO, and it is what it is. But I think that's a solution that a lot of people can stomach.
Okay.
But
I've heard some stuff with like a practice squad potentially.
Right. That was some of the discussion too.
Is there any viability to that? Like, is that something that is legit? Because it is important. Like, injuries are going to happen. And when I talked to Kendall about it when the court case first came out, it was like, hey, you're going to drop 3 pitchers no matter what. Like, right off the bat, that's going to happen. Probably 2 position players, and then by May, you're going to be scraping. So, like, what's going on with this practice squad?
It's still to be determined.
Or taxi squad, I guess.
Taxi squad, yeah. I mean, I don't know how much momentum it's got. I mean, I think the coaches love the idea.
Yeah.
But as far as getting that to fit into the settlement piece and all that stuff, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here. I suspect when it comes down to it, the 34-man with a little bit of wiggle room, because I was talking with a coach last night who said, hey, if you have 2 guys on scholarship who redshirt, they don't count against your roster limit.
Okay.
They do count against your scholarships, but they don't count against your roster limit, so you already have a little bit of leeway there.
Okay.
If a guy redshirts...
I didn't know that, because there were some guys, even now, that are hurt. I'm like, these guys are mega recruits. You're just going to tell them they got to leave now?
That's the thing we don't want, is to get into a spot where you can't take on any kid who comes in injured out of high school. I mean, that stinks. I mean, those kids, a lot of them become crucial pieces, and it takes them a year to get to see the field. But... I think as long as we have some wiggle room there where those guys don't count against your roster cap, but you still keep them around on scholarship, I think that's a satisfactory solution.
It's the interesting thing that I've seen is like positional versatility becomes paramount. And I'm thinking about like your roster cap. There's been times where I was involved in programs where, hey, we had 2 catchers get hurt. You are straight, and then like we have another one who's got a bum arm, and who can do things. Guys who can go play the outfield. You can go to shortstop. We were talking about Gracie there, can move. He's a left-handed thrower. He actually pitches too. I don't know if he's doing it still.
Not anymore.
He doesn't have to. But having those guys who can play all around the infield, potentially catch, they become valuable. And it's not just, it's a 2-way. He pitches and hit. No. Hey, you can play the outfield at a high level. You can defend in the infield. Can you catch?
Yeah.
Because it just makes you sleep better at night as a coach. Like, we have some options.
It's a great point, and I feel like I've seen more and more of that this fall even, just so many guys working out at so many positions, and that's always a part of fall ball anyway, but I do think that positional versatility has become a premium, and it will be even more so with the roster limit. Although, it's worth noting, I mean, on average, a D1 team uses, 26, 28 guys over the course of an actual spring. You still need to have that wiggle room above and beyond that, but I think 34 is perfectly fine. It's basically what it used to be.
Aaron's going to really tick off some of the coaching, the coaching fraternity. Yeah. They want more.
Always want more. Huh?
But it really is going to be a fascinating look going into this spring. Just wrapping up here, like with regards to those rankings, finding those top end guys, the foundational pieces is going to become really important each year. I think there's some years where programs don't need a guy, and it's the other thing I think we'll look at in the future is like, a lot of it goes in. Coaches' boards are not just like, hey, this 1 year. It's a 4-year plan. SEC probably more of a 3-year plan where this is what we're looking at. You identify as a freshman, does this guy fit for us? Does he have to go? Where is he here? But when you have those foundational pieces, like, hey, we're banking on this guy being good, that's where you come into like, this is a good class. So that's where I think we're headed.
I think you're exactly right. And I will say this, Shooter, looking at the list of the top guys who showed up on campus, Tennessee leaps out. I mean, how many guys do they have who are in the top 100 that wound up? It's a lot. I mean, they're still landing those premium guys at a high level, and it's just kind of blown everybody else away this cycle.
And I love watching those. Like, so if you go beyond just our top 100, I think back to Matt Shaw. Matt Shaw is a guy we love. He's a top 500 New England, right, infielder. Where's he going to play? But he goes off to Maryland and he tears it up. Like, probably wouldn't have been in a top 100 list if we had done it at the time. But that means that guy went and worked his tail off. Matt Swope did a great job. They put that guy together. It's definitely a different age. We'll have to do this on another episode with NIL because you start seeing Will Schmitz of the world turn down the first round to go to school. That's a different level. You see different guys who are doing some stuff like that. We got an arms race in the state of Texas that's reverberating all throughout the SEC and beyond.
It's crazy.
I'm wondering if it'll go even further, like move outside the SEC. What if we had some small like SMU just decides to add baseball?
Let's go.
SMU says, we're going all in, we're putting this money in here, Pony Express is back, let's
Get it together, SMU, come on.
We want baseball in Dallas at SMU. But Aaron, this has been awesome, great talk. I can't wait for the spring rankings, lots of content coming out on d1baseball.com, heading up, even the Super 60 you guys are at. What else, you got anything else for us heading this the spring?
Season preview content. We got a few new things in the pipeline that people are going to have to stay tuned to see, but a lot of developments at D1 Baseball this winter, and always grateful for our partnership, our friendship. Thanks for all you do for the game. Thanks for having me on your program. An absolute delight as always.
Make sure all you high school parents, this is the guy that speaks it into existence in college, at the college level, Aaron Fitt, and the rest of the guys at D1 Baseball. Until next time, this has been a Recruiting Essentials episode at Prep Baseball. I'm Shooter Hunt. See you at the ballpark.